The man who wandered through space, darkness, silence, a nothingness without beginning or end, and then consciousness. His eyes opened to a universe without ground, without ceiling, without walls. Only a sea of distant stars, scattered like scars of light across the fabric of infinity. He didn't understand. His heart did not beat, his lungs did not draw air, and yet he was there, alive, or something close to it. The first thought that came to his mind was death. Had he died? Space is unforgiving. Without oxygen, without atmospheric pressure, the human body would become a swollen, frozen husk in mere seconds. But he did not freeze. He did not swell. He did not suffocate. He felt the nothingness around him as if it were an extension of his own skin, cold, silent, immense. He tried to move, and to his surprise, he could. A subtle impulse, as if an invisible force guided him through the void. But to where? He looked around, expecting to find wreckage, a ship, an explanation, nothing, only him and the endless abyss. Time did not exist there. Seconds, minutes, perhaps years could have passed. His body felt no hunger, no thirst. The initial terror gave way to a strange fascination. How was it possible to be here? Was he dreaming, trapped in some experiment, or had he been torn from reality itself? He tried to scream. His mouth opened, but the sound was devoured by the vacuum. No echo, no vibration. It was absolute solitude, raw, terrifying. For the first time, he understood the true extent of what it meant to be alone. No ground to stand on, no wind to touch his skin, no voices to answer. Only him and the empty eternity. But then, something changed. On the dark horizon, a glow. Small, faint, pulsating. He felt it, not saw it, but felt it. Something moving in that direction. A wordless call, a presence that should not be there. His body, or whatever was left of it, began to drift slowly toward that point of light. Was it hope, a delusion, or something much, much worse? The man who wandered through space realized that even in the vastness of the cosmos, perhaps he was not truly alone. He tried to ignore the growing sensation that something was watching him, but the glow ahead intensified, becoming sharper, more real. He didn't know what it was, a distant star, a satellite, or something beyond human comprehension. The only undeniable fact was that this point of light was not merely a reflection of the void. He felt it like a beacon, an invisible guide pulling him in, as if the very gravity of the universe had decided to concentrate on that isolated point. As he moved toward the light, his body glided with unsettling fluidity, as if he were part of space itself, as if the vacuum were his ally. He no longer cared about scientific explanations or the rules of the universe he once knew. Logic no longer applied here. All he felt was urgency, a deep, primal need to reach it, to understand what was happening. Each second felt like an eternity, each movement a step deeper into an unknown abyss. But as he got closer, something even stranger happened. He was no longer alone in his mind. He began to hear voices, not the voices of people, but distant echoes, as if they were fragments of memories scattered across space. They whispered, murmured words he could not understand, as if an entire civilization was trying to communicate across the vastness of the cosmos. The words were fragmented, confusing, and he couldn't tell whether he was hearing them inside his own head, or if they were emanating from somewhere unseen, lost in the mist of space. He looked at himself. His fingers, instead of being frozen or deteriorated, were intact, functioning with an eerie precision. The fear melted away into a sense of unease. He was losing control. He wanted to scream, to understand, but he didn't know who to call for or If there was even anyone listening, what was he searching for? Salvation? Answers? Or simply the end of everything? The light was now so close that he could feel its presence, not with his eyes, but with his very being. A vibration, a slow pulse, like the distant beating of a heart. He reached out, almost instinctively, as if he knew that touching it would change everything irreversibly, and yet something made him hesitate. What was this light? Was it the key to returning to the world he once knew, or a gateway to something even more incomprehensible? The voices in his mind grew louder, now clearer, but still unintelligible. They were there, or was he there with them? He wondered if this was real, or if he was trapped in a nightmare with no end. But the light pulsed as if inviting him, as if saying, "Come to us, and you will know." And then he touched it, not with his fingers, but with his soul. The contact was not physical. It was a fusion of his essence with something far greater. What he felt was indescribable, a surge of energy and knowledge that made him feel as though the entire truth of the universe was being unveiled at once. Endless secrets, echoes of lost civilizations, the fate of the cosmos, all of it flooding his consciousness, and in that moment, between the light and the darkness, he understood. He was not wandering through space by accident. He had been chosen. But for what? That he did not yet know. The light around him exploded in a burst of energy that surged through his being, not physically, but on a deeper, more primal level. The entire universe seemed to contract, leaving him in a state of absolute perception. Every atom around him pulsed with life. Every star, every fragment of matter felt connected, as if he were part of a cosmic fabric he had never imagined existed. He felt small, yet also part of something vast and incomprehensible. Every question he had ever asked, about his fate, about his existence, now felt like a distant echo. He understood something that transcended human comprehension: solitude, emptiness. It was all part of a greater design, of a journey only he could undertake. But as his perception expanded, he also began to grasp the weight of this revelation. There was no going back. There was no escaping this connection. The light, which had initially seemed like an answer, now bound him, like an anchor in an infinite ocean of possibilities. He was no longer just a man lost in space. He was a key, a link between worlds, between realities. And no matter how much he resisted this truth, the universe was shaping him, forging him for something he could not yet fully comprehend. There was a price to pay for knowing too much. As the light finally began to fade, he once again found himself floating in the vacuum of space. But he was no longer alone. He was no longer lost. He now understood with absolute clarity that his journey was never about finding a way back. It was about discovering what he was meant to become in the face of the infinite forces surrounding him. He needed no ship, no direction. He already had everything he needed: the power of connection, the understanding that the universe was in constant motion, and that he was now a part of this eternal cycle. The voices in his mind began to quiet, but one final message emerged, not in words, but in pure emotion. You are next, and you are ready. The weight of this message did not crush him. On the contrary, it filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known existed. He was no longer a lost man. He was now a presence, a force, a being intertwined with the cosmos in ways he was only beginning to understand. And so, the man who wandered through space, without a ship, without direction, found his true destiny. He had been chosen to transcend, to uncover secrets beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. And in that moment he knew that his journey, though it had never begun as something grand, would now be remembered as the most profound transformation of all.